Have you ever finished a hard day and then spent the rest of the night thinking about the hard day, not relaxing, not sleeping, just replaying it quietly without really meaning to? We tend to call this being reflective, thoughtful, self-aware, as if the person who examines their life is doing something more responsible than the one who lets it go. But there's something that doesn't quite fit in that story. Something that keeps getting left out. There's a difference between understanding your experience and being unable to leave it alone. Between processing something and just circling it. Most people never learn that distinction. They were never taught it, and without it, a mind that can't stop thinking gets mistaken for a mind that cares deeply. That confusion has a cost, a quiet one, and this video is about what it takes away from you before you even notice it's gone. Something shifted when you first named what you were feeling. You saw the tiredness for what it was, not just a bad week, not just poor sleep. Something more settled than that. And almost immediately, the mind moved toward it, wanting to examine it, wanting to understand where it came from, what it meant, what you were supposed to do about it now that you could see it clearly. That reflex is familiar. It's probably been with you for a long time. The sense that noticing something creates an obligation to do something with it. Maybe that's not always true. Maybe recognition doesn't always have to become a project. Maybe sometimes seeing something clearly is already enough, and the next step doesn't have to be effort. There's a kind of tiredness that doesn't come from doing too much. It comes from thinking about what you've done, turning it over, checking it, looking for the part that still needs to be resolved. Reflection can feel like rest because you're sitting still, but the mind is still working, still running the same loop, hoping that this time it will land somewhere different. It's okay if that's been your way of coping. It made sense to try to understand things. It probably helped, some of the time. But you don't have to keep doing it, out of habit. You don't have to process something just because it's there. Some experiences are asking to be felt, not solved, and there's a difference between the two. Putting something down doesn't mean you've failed to deal with it. Sometimes it just means you've carried it long enough. Somewhere along the way, most of us picked up a quiet rule, that if you haven't fully thought something through, it's still waiting for you. That unexamined feelings accumulate, that they sit in a pile somewhere, growing heavier the longer you leave them, that you owe your inner life a kind of careful accounting. It's an understandable belief, and it's not entirely wrong. Some things do need attention, some things do ask to be looked at, but not everything, and the pressure to process everything equally, to leave nothing unexamined, can quietly become its own kind of burden. A second job you never agreed to take. It's okay if some things remain a little soft around the edges. Not everything needs a conclusion. Some feelings are allowed to just be inconclusive. Think of something that used to bother you, not something recent, something from a few years ago. A conversation that felt unfinished, a version of yourself you weren't sure about, and notice, does it still carry the same weight? For most things it doesn't. Not because you worked through it. Not because you found the insight that finally made it make sense. It just quieted. The way a sound fades after the source is gone, the mind has its own way of clearing things. Slowly, without announcement, without requiring anything from you. It happens mostly when you're not watching. Maybe that's worth trusting a little more than you have been. You don't have to finish processing everything before you're allowed to rest. You don't have to reach a conclusion about every feeling before the day ends. You don't have to understand something completely before you're allowed to let it sit quietly in the background. Some things will resolve without your help. Some things are already resolving right now, in ways you can't see yet. And the energy you've been spending, trying to think your way through every layer of yourself, that energy is allowed to go somewhere else. Or nowhere at all. It's allowed to just stop for a while. You've already done enough noticing. What comes next doesn't have to be more work. It can just be a little more quiet. Maybe something shifted a little just from sitting with this. Not a breakthrough, not a resolution, just a small loosening, the kind you almost don't notice until later. You don't have to understand everything that's been moving through you. You don't have to finish the thought you came in with. There's nothing here that needs to be fixed before you're allowed to rest. Nothing that needs to be better by tomorrow. Some things are still unclear. And that's where they're allowed to stay. For now, not forgotten, just not forced. The mind will keep moving, in its own time, in its own way. You don't have to go with it tonight.